Good afternoon. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. I am your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio today with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. Hi, Dad.
How are you?
Good. Today we are on part 6 of our Parenting 101 series, things we need to be teaching our children about living consciously. If you've missed any of the other 5 episodes, you can find them online on hometownstation.com. Go to the podcast page and catch up. But we're going to just jump right on into our next distinction. So what we're doing is we're going over morals, values, principles, and going over those distinctions so that way we can teach our kids how to be more effective in life and what's important and what's good for us to be focusing on.
Yeah, it was funny because I was having a conversation with a parent this last weekend. I was doing a teen training out in Ontario, and she said to me that said something to me that really validated something that I've been believing for a long time, and that's that our kids today aren't really getting exposed to this kind of learning, this emotional intelligence, and learning certain distinctions about life and leadership to really help them be powerful and help them navigate the challenges that life's going to throw at them in the 21st century. When you think about educating yourself, mainly the majority of people think about educating yourself in school, and schools don't really break down life and how to really help you develop these interpersonal skills and understand certain words and what things mean so that you can really be aware of your thoughts and really figure out how to create a reality that is empowering rather than a reality that disempowers you and puts you down a path where you're suffering in your life. So I also agree that we should, as parents, be teaching our kids certain distinctions and have deep, meaningful discussions about life and about what some of these words are so that we're really giving our kids these tools to be able to be powerful leaders in the community. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, and especially doing this Parenting 101. The next word, a distinction I want to go over today, is criticism. Now, when you look up the definition of criticism, I thought it was pretty interesting. I want to read it. It says, the expression of disapproval of someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes. Now, the thing that really jumps out at me in this distinction or definition of criticism is that it's something that someone else perceives in you. It's a judgment or a critique that somebody else sees in something that you're doing or something that you are showing or being in your life. So it's a criticism, a judgment that other people perceive, but it doesn't mean that it's true. And a lot of times as kids, when we're being criticized by our peers, our friends, the people that we really admire and look up to them, if they're criticizing us and we feel like we're being criticized, it's very easy to perceive their criticism as truth rather than somebody explaining to us is just how they're understanding us. It's the meaning that they're making up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's who you are. And I think by you explaining that to your kids and distinguishing the difference really will help them be more powerful in their life.
I also think that as adults and kids, young adults, all of us, we take criticism and we get defensive because we believe that, not that necessarily all the time that it's true, but we believe that person is believing that it's true and telling everybody that it's true kind of thing. And I think that's why we get defensive and why we want to actually fight back and say, no, I'm not like that. No, that's not what that meant. And we start, getting defensive and get in arguments and everything because we are not looking at it as, okay, you just experienced it that way. And we talked about this last week when we talked about feedback, where we're not really taking people's opinions as just their opinions. We're taking them as if those people are trying to force us to believe it's true. But sometimes I think, at least I'm guilty of this, is I will push it so much and be like, oh, that's just your opinion, that I'm not really open to the fact that maybe it's not just their opinion. Maybe it is true, or maybe it's a lot of people's opinion, so much so that it actually might be how I actually am.
Yeah, actually, like this morning, I was having a discussion with your youngest sister, my youngest daughter, and there was a discussion that we were having, and there was a point where I had to tell her, I'm sorry, but this is my experience of you. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't projecting what I was saying or my perception as though it was the truth, but I had to distinguish it was, this is how I'm experiencing you. You might not be intentionally acting this way or portraying yourself a certain way or choosing to be like that. I'm just letting you know that this is my experience of you. And I think as we learn certain distinctions and we teach our kids that other people are experiencing us as we're making choices to show up in the world in a specific way, then we have to also be mindful that that's how you're experiencing me. So, for example, if I get feedback from someone saying, my experience of you is that you're always defending yourself and you're very stubborn, and I justify it with, well, thank you for sharing your experience or your opinion with me. I'll take that in consideration. But if multiple people in your life, in your inner circle, keep giving you that same kind of feedback, and this is where it goes to deciding whether it's criticism or feedback, you're really the meaning maker of deciding which is which. But if you can hear it as feedback rather than criticism, then now I'm trying to go, okay, wait a minute. If 3 people say it and 4 people say it, there must be some kind of a trend about the way that I'm showing up, that more and more people are experiencing me as being stubborn and defensive. Maybe I should take a look at that.
Yes, but I also think that sometimes it really is. Yes, it really is.
So when you say yes, you're really saying no.
I'm saying yes, I agree. I mean, that's exactly what. Yes, I agree. I was saying that, but I also, I really do think that if enough people are telling me the same thing, that maybe possibly I might be guilty of it. But other times, like I've received criticism where it's not given. It's not given to me like in a package that's so pretty where I can say, oh, this is such a gift. Thank you for letting me know. It's usually given to me in a really like stern, harsh, just way out of left field place that I'm, like many people, I'm not ready or I'm not in the position to just have, criticism or quote unquote feedback. Some people I really think, maybe misinterpret the word feedback, and they see it as a way to criticize you. And it's really hard. It's really challenging to get over those, that when things are constantly being thrown at you, especially when somebody's trying to present or when you get defensive, they kind of back off and they're like, whoa, I was just giving you feedback. And really, it doesn't feel that way, especially as a kid when your parent is trying to help you, or obviously they really are trying to help you, but it doesn't feel that way when it feels like you're really just throwing daggers. So one of the things I wanted to point out was last week when we did talk about feedback, those two things, I think criticism came up when we started talking about it. Just because you are trying to help somebody, that doesn't mean that you are doing it in the most effective way possible. So just be careful when you are trying to give your kid feedback, that most of the time it's going to come off as criticism, whether you're trying to do that or not.
So why don't you ask me the question about how to, as a parent, to know the difference between giving feedback and criticism?
As the parent?
Yeah.
Okay, Dad, as the parent, how do I know the difference? But also, how can I not accidentally fall into the criticism side?
I think that it starts off with your intention. So your intention when you're giving the information that you want to give back to the person, whether it's your child or a nephew or a niece or someone you care about, it's obvious that you want to give them that information so they can look at it and then decide whether it's working for them or not working for them, and then let them decide whether they're going to course correct it or change it so that they can be more effective in their life. So as my intention as a parent, I got to ask myself, what's my intention? Am I sharing this with them because I'm afraid that if they keep doing this, that it's going to go down a road that I can't control anymore? Or do I honestly have the intention to give it to them just as neutral information with letting them decide whether they see it or not? And I'm unattached to whether they agree or disagree. So a lot of it has to do with your intention. So you really got to be aware of what your intention is when you're giving the so-called feedback or criticism or information that you want them to see. That's number one. Number two is you have to really practice the art of teeing up your information. And if you've been listening to the show a lot, you've been hearing us talk a lot about tee-ups. A tee-up is explaining to the person how to interpret the information that I want to share with you. So it will be an example. If you came in late and I'm really frustrated because you're always showing up late and I want to give you that feedback, I'm going to first say, hey, can I have a conversation with you and share some insight with you or some things that I've noticed so that hopefully it can help you move forward in your life in a more powerful way.
Yeah, you can't just blurt out, oh my God, you're always late.
Yeah, so number one is I'm asking permission. Now, the minute you say, yeah, go for it, or oh, I'm really frustrated, Dad, can this wait till after dinner or something like that, at least I'm first asking you for permission. When you say yes, I now have permission to share my feedback. So after I get the yes, now I'm going to do the tee up. Jasmine, I want you to know that when I share this insight or this experience that I'm having, I'm sharing it with you from a neutral place. I'm not judging you. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just giving you my experience of how I feel when you're showing up in this certain way. Is that okay? And then now I got another, yeah, go for it. Now you know my intention when I'm sharing it, because I've teed it up for you, is that you're giving it to me almost like a gift. And you're giving it to me unconditional from a neutral place so that you can decide whether it's something that you see value in or not. After you say yes, then I can say, this is my experience. My experience is every time you come in late, there's a part of me that I keep validating that I can't trust you with future things. And so every time you show up late, there's a part of me that I just, for whatever reason, I keep collecting evidence that future projects aren't going to be something that I'm going to invite you to because I can't count on you. You're not accountable for your time. For whatever reason, it seems like, from my experience, that you haven't figured out how to be bigger than your circumstances or get out of the house on time or just have a pattern of being somewhere that you said you were going to be 5 or 10 minutes earlier. And so I just want to let you know that's my experience. And so with me sharing that with you, you get to take away whatever goodie you want to take from it, or nothing at all. And so I'm kind of over exaggerating how it would sound like if I'm explaining that to you, if I want to give you that feedback. What's the takeaway that you're hearing on being on that end?
Well, I can see the tee up is going to be setting me like in a place where I'm like, okay, I already promised I already promised out loud that this was okay. I already said that anything that you say is going to be okay. So I already know not to I'm not in a place where I want to be defensive. I'm more in like okay, maybe I'm mad.
So now you're more open to it because you agreed.
Yeah, it's kind of like afterwards I can't. Yeah, afterwards I can't really like go off on you or be upset or defend myself because I've already agreed to it. But if I am going to be upset about it, or if it does bother me, then I have to sit with it for a little bit before I bring it up and talk to you, because like I said, I've already agreed to, the feedback. But I also can see how, especially if you're my parent, I could see how even setting up that perfect scenario, I can still take it as criticism. So I don't want parents to think that the first, second, third, even 100th time they try this, it's going to work out and the kid's going to walk away like, oh, thanks so much, Mom. I can't wait to go practice being on time. Because that's not really what's going to happen, especially when you grow up your whole life knowing that your parents are constantly criticizing you and trying to make you better and telling you what to do. It's not just a switch isn't going to just flip right away and them go, wow, I can see it all clearly now. My parents know everything, so you have to really be careful. I mean, we do it all the time. So, another thing like I wanted to point out was sometimes you had said earlier that sometimes your intention is like, if you're coming from a neutral place, like I just want to give you this information, sometimes that may be your intention, and you might just say whatever you think and think it's neutral, and it's really not. So for example, just being on this show, my mom, she always will text us and like tell us like on the break, like, you're doing this too much, you're doing that too much, because she can watch us on Facebook. And so I think when she would do that, it would come to me like as criticism. And it wasn't just my mom, it was people like texting me all the time like, oh, don't cross your arms, or don't twitch or whatever. So and I would get mad because I'd be like, you're really taking me out of the show, you're taking me out of the moment. I really need to just can this wait till after? And once I had that conversation, I feel like with those people, now after the show I get all the messages like, oh, you said too many times, so there's a lot of things that we have to realize that we're not doing it on purpose. You know, my mom's not trying to criticize me or hurt me or, you know, put me down. She's really trying to help me. But if I'm not in that space, then it's not helping either of us. It's probably hurting us.
Yeah, and I think that's why by introducing the possibility of you asking for permission as a head start and then doing a tee up, I'm hoping that if you learn those two tools, that you can help cause them to shift into the space to now be open to receiving the feedback and hearing it more from a neutral place rather than a judgment or a criticism. So I think that's the intention on the front end is asking you, the parent, is there anything that you can do or be on the front end to cause your son or daughter to shift and bring their walls down so that they can hear you, that's being interpreted as a way that when you're sharing that feedback that is being received as, oh, my mom's just telling me this because she wants to help me and because she loves me. But when we don't do the front end, like ask permission or do the tee up, and we just go right into just giving them this so-called gift called feedback, the percentages go really down from your kids even hearing it like that. And so you're right when you say, hey, mom, hey, dad, don't expect your kids, even though you do the tee up, that they're not going to hear it and just go, oh, okay, I'm going to start working on being on time. They might not hear it. But if you want to give yourself a fighting chance by using those tools in the front end, your percentages go a little bit higher that they are going to be defensive and that they aren't going to get upset and storm off and get mad at you and leave you standing there while you're trying to give them some great feedback.
Yeah, and before we move on, I really want to emphasize the whole thing that you're saying, not just setting up, you know, a tee up and everything, but sometimes all you really need is the right time and the right space. And if that doesn't just magically show up, then yes, you need to create it by asking for permission and setting up a tee up. But I think what we do is we naturally just, oh, you did that today? Oh, you should do this. Or I saw that you did that. You know, and like we say it like without the intention of hurting anybody. But that doesn't mean that's not how people are going to perceive it. And I think we do it every day, not just with kids, but we do it in our everyday life where, you know, I could say, oh, pick your jeans up, they're sagging, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, your kid's like, oh my gosh, like my mom's always, you know, so it's never what it looks like, I think, to the other person.
And I think you brought a great point that timing is important as well. When somebody know that they made a mistake or they came in late or they're not being on time, sometimes picking that moment to give them that feedback is probably not the best time. And maybe just asking them, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Let me know when the best time is. Or, hey, is it okay if we have a conversation later on after dinner? Like, you don't always have to give feedback when you feel like you need to get it off your chest. Sometimes by you being patient and knowing and feeling the right moment when the shift has happened organically, at a later time you can give it, and it might land more powerfully at a different time. So timing is important. I agree with you. As well as I don't want to leave out the beingness. So when I did that example, I wasn't being vulnerable. I was just saying it from whatever space I'm in right now. But if I would have brought some vulnerability into that, I guarantee you your walls would have been down a little bit more and your defense mechanisms would have been shut down a little bit more so that you can hear that what I'm saying it from an authentic, caring, compassionate place, and then your heart would have heard it like that, and then you would have been able to take that golden nugget away.
Oh, and no doubt in that whole scenario, your kids are going to be uncomfortable. They're going to be like, this is so awkward. Why is my mom, you know, getting vulnerable and emotional about being on time? You know, but after time goes on and after you do it enough times, it ends up not being awkward for some reason. It ends up not being weird. It actually ends up being really genuine and authentic, and people start to appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the next one. Next one is skepticism. Skepticism defined as a skeptical attitude which has doubt as to the truth of something. And so it's when somebody is always doubting whether something is true. And I think skepticism is more like a pattern or a come from or a paradigm or a certain framework that somebody operates from all the time. It's like, you know, more often than not, you're always doubting everything and everybody or every situation. And so I think it's important to really teach our kids what skepticism is, define it, have discussions about it, ask scenarios about when they've experienced it, either from themselves or from their friends or other people, and what does it feel like to have somebody be skeptical all the time around you or on a team. So I think having these discussions really opens up this possibility for us to really learn what these distinctions are, so that we can spot them in our life and recognize that other people might be skeptical, but it doesn't have to do anything with me, and I can learn how to separate myself from the way that they're choosing to show up versus who I'm being, and I'm not letting it tag me, and then my walls go up, and then I get defensive, and I'm wondering why I don't have these great relationships, because I'm always being triggered because of all the skeptical people.
Yeah, and I think parents are really skeptical of their kids, especially their teenagers. So this is a really big one for parents to maybe consider that it's possible that they've been acting that way, that they've been suspicious of their kids, and that's why their kids get defensive and they freak out and they're like, Mom, you always jump to conclusions. You always think I'm doing something, and I'm not. I'm just at my friend's house. So
well, that would be a great example as a parent, is to call themselves out and go, here's a great example of being skeptical, is when every time you tell me that you're going to be at your friend's house, there's a moment where I go to doubt it because of your past, because of all the times that you've let me down,
or because of the times that I did that to my parents.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So I think a lot of the reason where skepticism comes from and being suspicious of other people is because you know that you've done that, and you know that it's possible. So if you don't have any history of it yourself or from your kid, you're not going to assume that. That wouldn't even be a thought in your mind.
If you grew up around people that always kept their word, were always honest, and things always were what you thought they were going to be, you have no doubt to fall back on. But most of us human beings, when we're unconscious, we live in the present moment, carrying all of our past with us, and that comes with doubt. And a huge amount of doubt, or a big bag of doubt that you're carrying around with you, you taint the new moment of unlimited possibilities for anything to happen. You bring your skepticism with you, and you project that onto your own life, and you're projecting onto your kid's life as well.
I really like this one, especially for parents. So we'll talk about it after the break. Stay tuned for more of The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita Philharmonic has begun its season of free concerts. The SCP is a non-profit community-based volunteer symphony orchestra comprised of local musicians from throughout the Santa Clarita Valley who are dedicated to providing quality classical music for the residents of the Santa Clarita Valley. Like the Santa Clarita Philharmonic on Facebook, or visit santaclaritaphilharmonic.org for more information.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
Indulge yourself in the world of wine at the 6th Annual Sierra Pelona Valley Wine Festival, Saturday, April 21st from noon till 4 p.m., benefiting the Zonta Club of SCV. Get your Chardonnay on with live music, gourmet food, handmade crafts, and the best local wines Santa Clarita has to offer at Reyes Winery. Dionysus dilettantes and wine connoisseurs alike will enjoy this festival. Sponsored by Reyes Winery, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, main stage sponsor SCV Advanced Audiology, and VIP sponsors California Bank and Trust and Mercedes-Benz of Valencia. Visit reyeswinery.com to purchase tickets.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Inspirational Parent right here in your hometown station, KHTS. Before we went on the break, we were talking about skepticism and parents being skeptical of their kids. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up was that I think a lot of parents, they just automatically assume that their kids are doing the worst thing possible. And then they treat them like they're the worst kid possible. And sometimes you're sitting there as a kid like, why am I in trouble for this? Or why am I not allowed to go to this party because of something you made up that doesn't happen, there's not going to happen. And I think parents are like unconsciously punishing their kids for all of the other kids or all of the things that they think that they're going to do. And I think that kind of obviously has an effect on your relationship with your kid, because they feel like maybe you can't trust them or you don't really know them at all. It brings up a lot of things that are not true. It's basically both of your relationships are just living in this whole world of what ifs and what's not real.
That's a great point. I actually know some really good kids that I've ran across through the years that their parents are really controlling and are very doubtful of them and their choices, and they really have no evidence from those kids to justify that me being this strict and me being this controlling and not giving you permission to do certain things, and you got to be in the house at a certain time. And I'm talking about 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds that still live at home, and their parents are really strict, and they have a real tight they run a real tight ship at home in their parenting style. And the kids are just like, at a certain point, I can tell that those kids they're going to hit a breaking point where they just can't accept it anymore. A lot of them are doing it because they have respect for their parents, but the skepticism is really running rampant in the parenting, and they really have no proof to validate that their kids are doing these things. And if they did, maybe it's one or two, rather than some of the kids that have done it for 15, 16 years. And it's a great point that some parents bring their own past and their own doubts and their own fears into projecting that onto their kids, and might not really have a fair space for their kids to try to figure out how to win back the trust that maybe they have lost, or the trust that was taken away from them unfairly.
Yeah, I also think that in the skepticism, in the parents kind of making up these scenarios, yes, there could be truth to it. So it's not like we're saying, oh, okay, ignore all of your, parental instincts and everything. It's more of like, if you're going to be skeptical, be reasonable about it. Like, have some evidence to back it up. Or if not, even if you don't have evidence that's maybe real solid, truth or anything, maybe just sit down and have a conversation with your kids and say, you know what, I don't want you to go to this party because I'm afraid that you're going to drink. Instead of saying, no, you can't go to that party because there's going to be alcohol and you're going to drink and get in trouble. And, there's a lot of different ways that you can explain the same thing to your kids, and they just have different end game. There's a different result for them. And the whole old school style of parenting of telling them no and being skeptical and stuff, that stuff doesn't work with us anymore. You have to be really willing to be honest and be ready to crack open your shell and be authentic and be vulnerable and say, you know what, this is what I'm afraid of. And your kid might say, you might really be surprised. Your kid might say, okay, Mom, I understand. I probably was gonna drink, but if it's that important to you, I will try not to, or I understand maybe I won't go to this party. Or you never know, maybe they will storm away and get mad and lock themselves in the room all day. You really never know.
Yeah, and this is the part of the book in the Inspirational Parent where I wrote the chapter Emotional Honesty. And it's really about the parent learning how to just kind of tell on themselves and trust that information with their kids. And most of it has to do with the fears. Hey, I know that you might be able to be trusted, but it's something that I'm working on. This is a fear of mine. This is something that really scares me. And so this is my stuff, and I got to work on it. And so knowing that this is my fear, are you willing to kind of roll with me a little bit? And I promise that as you roll with me and prove that my fears aren't true, then my promise to you is that I'll give you a little bit more room for you to go out and have fun and enjoy yourself. So let's find a win-win somewhere in here. And I think that's the proactive parenting, the conscious parenting that we're talking about rather than not really being aware that you could be projecting your own fears and your own doubts and your own skepticism onto your kids. And this is what some of the things that they're frustrated with, which has you guys clashing heads.
And I think for us, the thing that gets through to us the most, in your honesty and in your authenticity, is sharing your own experiences and telling your own stories. Like, there's so many times where I wanted to do something and it really just took you or mom or even, my older brother or somebody saying, you know what, last time, I mean, I've done that before and this is how it happened. And it obviously wasn't the best decision. And then it makes me sit there and think like, well, I didn't know you did that, but like, okay, well, now I don't feel so bad about maybe thinking about doing it or doubting doing it. There's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of like opinions and your ideas and your decisions can change and everything based on knowing that your parents have been through the same thing. And it's really comforting too, because now I know, okay, well, if they were willing to share with me that maybe they were drinking underage too and it had a bad ending, maybe I can, next time I feel like maybe I want to drink, I can talk to them. And it really opens up, it's like going to open up like a dialogue. Even if it doesn't happen like right there, it might happen in a couple months from now. They'll come to you and start talking to you about it and you'll be like, oh, that was weird, I don't know why he would open up to me about that. But it was because 2 months ago you opened up to him. So it might not happen right away, but I think if you just keep being honest, that really like resonates with us, is like sharing your own stories.
That's great insight. The next distinction in this category is being pessimistic. Pessimistic, when you really break that distinction down and define it to your kids, is tending to see the worst aspect of things or believe that the worst is going to happen. And being a pessimist, I think, is more of a characteristic trait that someone develops because they keep collecting evidence from their past that they just don't have good luck or nothing really happens to them in a positive way. And so what we do is, at a certain point, we create a belief. It's a negative, a pessimistic belief, and that belief is in our belief system, and now we are always choosing from that place. And so as a parent, if you're pessimistic, showing up like that as an experience of your kids, then they're going to be frustrated because they're going to see themselves that you can't ever trust them, or you can never trust that things are going to go in a way that's positive. And so they're going to be angry at you because they're going to feel like you're treating them unfairly, like you're not being fair to them, because you're always bringing your doubt and your worst case scenario into every situation. They don't feel like they're getting a fair shake.
Yeah, and you have to also realize that a lot of kids, especially like the really young kids, they are not pessimistic yet. They don't know anything to be, they have no evidence of anything being bad for them to be that way.
Can you imagine a 4-year-old like walking around just, always thinking about worst case scenario and like just doubting everything? You're right. When we're born purely magnificent, trusting everything and everybody. It's not until we've gone through life and certain events that we chronically, consistently have been let down, or things never turn out for us. So we go around just scooping up all this evidence to prove to ourselves that life isn't fair.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it's a little upsetting, I guess, to think about all of the times. I'm sure as parents, you can think of times where you've seen your kid just be so optimistic and so happy about something, and you just dump all of your stuff like on top of it. And it's almost, it's really, really upsetting because when they're really young, like 3 or 4 years old, you're not, their light and their excitement is so pure that you're kind of like, you're a little bit weary of it. You're not going to just throw it all on them right away. But when they get older, it's the same thing. If your 15-year-old comes to you so excited, so happy about something, and then you just dump all of your stuff onto them, that's like, it's almost just as heartbreaking, if not more, just because how often does your teenager really come to you excited about something? And when they do, it's really important that you look and see the way that you're reacting or responding to it.
When I think about it in a certain way, I visualize, and the picture that I paint is like you would be extinguishing a fire. And if you're trying to ignite a fire or spark into your kids to be excited or passionate about something, or really in love with a certain journey or willing to take a risk, I want you to see that as a spark or a flame or a little fire. Your job is to fan that flame, to give it oxygen, to blow on it, to cause an inferno. And with your pessimistic attitude or outlook in life, you can be the extinguisher. You can be the water, the sand, the lack of air that just snuffs out that spark and never really causes a wildfire in your kid to be passionate enough to go out and challenge life and take risks and go out there and embark on a journey of growth and discovery because of your own pessimistic views.
Yeah, and the whole, I feel like the whole idea of the Inspirational Parent, the show and the book, really is to find your own way to ignite that fire, your own way to push your kid. When we say like, inspiration and inspiring your kids, you can think, okay, inspired to do what? And it's really to inspire the best life possible, to make sure that, lighting that inferno isn't a bad fire. It's you want them to go out and you want them to just burn through everything and do everything well and be loved by everybody. And I think, what we are doing, and I say we because I'm doing it in my relationships too. All my relationships is we want people so badly like to need us and to rely on us that I think when people see the big fire, they get scared. And I can see parents doing this. I do it myself, but I can see parents, seeing the big fire and being afraid and being scared, like, oh, okay, maybe my kid doesn't need me anymore. And then they go, oh, that's crazy. Let me put this fire out because they do need me. So you really have to, again, look at your intention, where you're coming from when every moment that you speak to your kid, especially when they're excited about something. And, you never know, that thing that they're talking about might change their life.
And that takes awareness, which goes back to the purpose of the show and the purpose of the book and the purpose about everything that you and I talk about is all about awareness. It's all about being really aware, being hyper aware, being observant, checking in with yourself, asking yourself questions. Why do I do this? Why did I say that? Why do I keep doing these things? It's always about reflecting onto you and figuring out how you're the equation to all the problems that you have. How are you the solution to all the problems that you could be creating or could be co-creating in your life? How are you at the realm of every situation that comes up that's not favorable? It's kind of like you're the common denominator in all of your arguments, all of your broken relationships, all of the frustrated moments. You're always there. You're always the one that's bringing to the party some of the doubts and the fears and the insecurities and the pessimistic. And we can go on and on about how we kind of blow up the situation. But we're also saying that inside of you are all the tools that you can course correct that, all the answers, all the trusting, all the giving, all the optimism, all the inspiration, all the believing. Like you have all those inner tools that are there inside. You just got to be willing to tap into that. But it first starts with awareness. You got to first be aware of it. And I think you got to be courageous enough to call yourself out on it. Because I know a lot of people are listening right now, and as we're talking about some of these things, they're going, that's not me. I don't do that. Those are other moms. Or those are other parents. So you also got to be willing to be honest and look at yourself.
If you ask your kid, they're probably saying, that's my mom.
Absolutely.
She does that.
Absolutely. After working with parents for over 20 years, I already know that parents live in the illusion that I am all loving. I am all trusting. I am all vulnerable. I am all, optimistic. And when it really boils down to it, your kids might not be experiencing you as that all thing that you keep claiming yourself to be. Based on results, you got to ask yourself, how close are you and how deeply connected are you and your kids that you're actually being a mentor in their life and that they listen to you and that they're coming to you for advice. And so it's the whole picture.
So speaking of that, there's this thing that you used to do with your clients. I don't know if you still do it anymore, but you used to give them like like homework or something that was like a chart, like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you rate yourself in loving or vulnerable with your kid? You remember that. I don't know if you still do it, but you used to do, my little feather fell out of my jacket. You used to do that all the time. And I would always think like, okay, how cool would it be to give that same, sheet to the kids? And so the kids could rate the parents, because the parents, like you said, like they come back and they're like, they give themselves 10s in all the categories. And if they really were 10s, then they would be the perfect parent. But when if they were to get back their kids sheet and they would see that they were a 2 in vulnerability or a 1 in paying attention to them, that would be I feel like so devastating, but in a good way. Like it'd be devastating enough where you would be like, all right, I need to get to a 10. And it would probably ignite that fire in a parent to be like, okay, how am I going to be the best parent possible? Or how am I going to be the parent that I thought I was? And, there's not really very many kids that are honestly going to fill out that form honestly either. So it really takes, like you said, like a lot of consciousness, a lot of hard work, especially from your kids, because I don't really think we are being 100% honest with you guys either. So it's not just, I don't want anyone to think that this show is us, calling out parents or blaming parents for everything, because it's not. It's both of us. But one person here is the adult. One person here is the one that's really fighting for you. One person, if it's almost like if I'm not going to fight for myself, I know for sure my mom and dad are going to be there, egging me on. So, I just don't want parents to think that that's what this is. And because it's really easy, I think, to tune into the show and be like, oh my God, they're trashing me on how bad of a parent I am.
And just so you know, you can't control that, and it is happening, and it has been happening as long as I've been on the radio. There are either people that can hear what we're saying and how we're saying it and know that our intention is to point things out that you don't want to see. And this has always been the drawback to my business. Is my job is to call things out in a loving way and point out some of the things that you're unwilling to see that keeps getting in your way of your full potential. Now, there's drawbacks to that. Some people can see the value in that and love me for it. Some people don't want to see that and have been avoiding it for so long that they justify that I'm not the kind of coach that they want. And so then I get criticized and put in a box and all that kind of stuff. But the people that really want this kind of work and are willing to have the thick skin to be able to take that gut shot, they're the ones that end up having the biggest breakthroughs and causing the biggest shifts in their consciousness and doing the 360 in their family and really creating extraordinary relationships. And the reason why I know that is because my biggest breakthrough comes when I have honest people that love me and care for me, that are willing to give me that brutal, honest feedback that feels like a gut shot. Some of my biggest aha moments and breakthroughs have come when I felt so disturbed by looking and observing and really calling myself out. When I'm really honestly willing to tell on myself and go, yeah, I do that. Or, yeah, I've done that. Or, yeah, that's an insecurity of mine. Or, you know what, yeah, I can see how that one way of stubbornness is getting in the way of all my relationships. I mean, just saying it out loud and hearing yourself say it is the aha moment. But what most people do is they avoid wanting to look at that and acknowledge it. We like living in the illusion that I'm not that, and therefore I don't have to look at it.
Yeah, and those gut shots that you're talking about are all things that I feel like maybe in our family that we've been through, and we're just sharing it. Like, we're just telling everybody, like, that's exactly, like, we know that this is true because we've been through it, and because we're
willing to look and at ourselves and be honest with, yeah, I am stubborn,
and
I do try to control you, or so being conscious isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest and being aware and acknowledging some of the things that I still need to work on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times where I'm like, okay, I gotta share this story because I know that if it helps one person, then I'll feel better about it, even though I don't want to tell myself on the air.
But that's the juice. That's where you're realizing that by you living your life in an honest way and then communicating it, you just might help someone else see it in themselves so that they can be learning right along with you.
Yeah, sounds good. We had to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more of The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Life's not meant to feel complacent. It's meant to make you feel alive. The youth ministry at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita believes that students can belong to the group where we will help them believe they have a purpose in Christ and become all that He has created them to be. We want to see God's power come alive in our generation. We love meeting new people, so come hang out with us. Doors open at 6 p.m. and service starts at 7 every Wednesday night. For more information about the Church on the Way Santa Clarita, including service times and what's happening through the end of the year, visit tcowsc.org.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Giddy up! Time to dust off your boots and throw on your cowboy hat. The 25th Annual Santa Clarita Cowboy Festival, presented by Heritage Sierra Medical Group, is coming to Old Town Newhall April 19th through 22nd. Set at the historic William S. Hart Park, the Cowboy Festival will feature live performances, authentic cowboy gear, and mouth-watering peach cobbler. General admission is free, and there will be ticketed performances in Newhall from Honey County, Hot Club of Cowtown, and more. For more information, visit cowboyfestival.org.
Drop in for a new virtual reality experience. DC Superheroes Drop of Doom VR. For a limited time at Six Flags Magic Mountain, take a ride on one of the world's tallest and fastest drop tower rides. Using special VR headsets, view the action while fully immersed in a 360-degree virtual world, plunging 400 feet at 85 miles per hour on Lex Luthor Drop of Doom. Plus, spend the day getting your fill of thrills on the most thrilling coasters in the world, like Twisted Colossus, Goliath, and more. Only at the thrill capital of the world. Are you ready for your chance at a day of Six Flags thrills for free? Keep listening to KHTS 98.1 and AM 1220 for your chance to win. Not a winner? You can still get the best deals on tickets, season passes, and memberships when you visit sixflags.com today. It's the all-new virtual reality experience at Six Flags Superheroes Drop of Doom VR, only at Six Flags Magic Mountain.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we are on part 6 of our Parenting 101 series. Before we run out of time, I want to at least go over one more distinction so that we can end on a good note. And
well, I don't know if we're going to end on a good note with this distinction, but we're going to talk a little bit about it, and then maybe we'll tease it for next week, and then we'll start the show off with it. But the distinction is death. And, opening up the possibility of talking to our kids about death and what does it mean, and really explaining the fears, I think, that's surrounded around them, and, really just opening up that discussion to understand what it means. And I think this will also help parents and the adults to really, talk about it and really kind of get into it.
Okay, if you're not watching on Facebook Live, I feel like my face, my reaction, like already is very clear that, like death makes people so uncomfortable, and it makes people sad, and it makes them feel weird and silly. Sometimes people laugh or whatever, but I think that as a young kid, for me, death was not really like. It was just a thing, it wasn't really anything I had to deal with, so it was mostly just, like I said, it was just like a thing that was there. It wasn't until I actually experienced, death close to me that I realized, shoot, like this is a big deal. This is like life-changing big deal. And even to this day, your teenagers might not have ever experienced death that close. They might still have all of their grandparents and aunts and uncles and still have a relationship with everyone that's close to them, that it might be too late I don't want to say too late, but it might be challenging to explain and go through this process with your teenager who's 16, 17, 18 years old versus, being younger, 5, 6, 7, or whatever. But the thing that I just wanted to point out was, for me, like going through this experience at such a young age, I think I was 9 or 10 when my grandfather died, and it was a big thing for me. I couldn't imagine going through it the first time, being 16, 17, 18 years old, already being older. I think it would have been a lot tougher. So yeah, I really do think that bringing it up at a young age, and at least being able to have a discussion about it, because you're not gonna be able to prepare your kid even at, when they're older, 16, 17, but having a discussion about it, if not regularly, or at least taking the opportunity when somebody in your family is sick, or just taking any opportunity you can, because it is going to be hard. It's going to be tough when they're older.
Yeah, some of the other distinctions that surrounds death is grief or loss. You tie death into an experience. It's usually that you lost a loved one, or that someone's not going to be there anymore. And then you got to deal with the heartbreak and the emotions that come with losing somebody that you love. And so it's so deep. This distinction is so deep, and we can talk about it for forever. And but I think it's a very important distinction to teach our kids. And as we're teaching our kids, we're actually learning ourselves, and we're learning how to deal with loss, and what's the healthy way to deal with loss, and what's the unhealthy way. And so it can really go down so many different avenues. But I think that now, if I were to redo my life again and I was to reparent again, I would have really sat down with you guys and talked to you more about these distinctions, and really just asked you open-ended questions, and really just had some deep. So all my dinners would have been, picking one distinction and talking about it, so that every night, every day, I'm helping you guys become more emotionally intelligent and aware, and just really grasping these powerful distinctions of life, so that it can really support you on your day-to-day life, and the choosing and making sense of things, and creating your own realities, and separating what's real versus what's beliefs, and not letting people project things onto you, and all that kind of stuff, so that you can live powerfully and healthy, and prep you for life. Now, as a 47-year-old parent with young adult kids, it's like now you go, oh my God, like now as I'm absorbing all this and it's becoming clear to me, I wish I would have had this when I was younger. And so that's the purpose of writing the book, and helping more parents at an earlier age become more aware, more conscious, and grabbing some of these tools and really supporting you in your parenting.
Yeah, and even knowing it, like you said, I wish I knew this when I was younger. It's not really just enough to know it. There's a lot of things that I know, and then there's a lot of things that I forget that I know when I'm in the middle of a fight, or when I'm in the middle of my emotions. And
but there's a lot of things that I've learned, or I known, or just discovered that I known in my 20s or 30s. And then I thought to myself, had I have somebody explain this to me when I was 6 or 7 or 12, what an edge I would have had on my life. What an advantage I would have already have had moving forward in my life. So.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out too is that it's never really too late to start doing
it's never
this.
Too late.
So if your
That's why
kid
we're
is
talking
25 years old, it's okay. You can have that family dinner. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, KHTS.